There exists a strange irony in the realm of human goodness, a contradiction so deeply stitched into the soul of the kind-hearted that it often escapes their awareness until the weight of the world breaks their spine. Kindness, that revered virtue sung by sages, whispered by scriptures, and etched into the hearts of those seeking to live meaningfully, can, in its unguarded abundance, become a silent architect of one's ruin. As the ancient Stoics taught, every virtue, when untethered from reason, morphs into a vice. And so we begin a journey not through darkness, but through a twilight of clarity, a revelation bathed in the golden silence of introspection, where the light of ancient wisdom illuminates the shadows cast by our well-meaning deeds. The first fracture begins with excessive kindness, the trap where one's own worth is surrendered at the altar of pleasing others. In the name of harmony, we silence our instincts, lower our defenses, and extend more than what is required, believing that to love and be loved demands sacrifice without measure. But in this sacrifice, we forget the sacred duty of the self, the divine flame that burns in each of us, asking not for praise, but for preservation. The Stoics warned against this. Seneca spoke of the danger of giving too freely, not because generosity is unwise, but because when the gift is endless and without discretion, it loses its essence, and we become instruments of others' comfort rather than guardians of our own truth. The second sorrow emerges in the art of giving without expectation, a noble pursuit that, when unbalanced, becomes a slow surrender. Yes, Stoicism teaches us to act without attachment to outcomes, but it also reminds us not to be naive in our offerings. For in a world where wolves dress as sheep, kindness without discernment becomes a beacon for exploitation. The kind become targets, their silence mistaken for weakness, their generosity interpreted as permission. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Be like the rock against which the waves crash, unmoved. And yet, the excessively kind try to be the wave, fluid, yielding, endless, until there's nothing left of them but foam." In the third crucible lies the failure to set boundaries, the gentle art of saying no, which is often the most violent revolution a kind soul can undertake. Without boundaries, the kind become bridges that are walked on, never realizing they were meant to be mountains. To say no is not cruelty, it is clarity. It is the armor forged by those who have been burned too many times by the fire of their own goodness. The Stoics knew that virtue was not found in martyrdom, but in measured action, in the discipline to protect the sanctity of the soul. Epictetus taught that we must control our impressions, and this includes the impression others have that our time, energy, and spirit are theirs to command. The fourth storm arises from being too available, from always saying yes, from always being there, from never choosing oneself. In this overexposure, kindness loses its value. The perpetual giver becomes invisible, their presence expected, their efforts undervalued. Like a candle that burns without pause, they are consumed, and those who once praised their light now seek warmth elsewhere, forgetting the source. This is the tragedy of the overly kind. They vanish in plain sight. The Stoics understood this quiet erosion of the soul, and through their writings, they urge us not to harden, but to become wise. Kindness is not a performance, nor a currency. It is a sacred offering that must be given in balance, with reason, with strength. It must flow from a full vessel, not an empty one. And so we return to the stillness, the sacred silence within, where the soul whispers what the world has tried to silence. You are not here to be consumed. You are not here to please. You are not here to lose yourself in the service of those who would not bleed for you. You are here to live, to breathe with intention, to act with courage, and to be kind. Yes, but with the kind of kindness that stands tall, that walks away when it must, that says no with grace, and that protects its flame even as it lights the way for others. This is the Stoic way. This is the wisdom of the ancients rising again in the modern world. And if you listen closely, in the quiet moments, in the stillness between breaths, you will hear the voice of your own soul reminding you that kindness, when paired with wisdom, is the greatest strength of all. And so, as the sun sets on this quiet reflection and the embers of our exploration begin to fade into the night, we are left with an ancient truth flickering gently in the vast corridors of the soul, that kindness, while sacred, must never be untethered from wisdom. For when kindness becomes compulsive, when it flows without measure, when it bends to the demands of every hand and every whisper, it ceases to be an act of virtue and becomes instead a chain, a silent prison forged not by others, but by the tender hands of the self. The Stoics knew this. They whispered it in parchment and wind, in the silence between breaths and the moments between battles. They did not warn against kindness. They revered it, but they warned against its misuse, against the erosion of one's center in the name of approval or peace or fear. Marcus Aurelius, alone in the dark halls of the Roman Empire, did not ask for blind obedience or endless giving. He asked only for alignment with reason, for a return to the self, for a flame that burns clean and clear without smothering the one who carries it. To be kind is not to fold, and to give is not to disappear. Life, in all its sacred unfolding, demands from us a balance so delicate it might be mistaken for contradiction. To be open and protected, to be soft and unyielding, to offer without emptying, and to retreat without resentment. We live in an age where kindness has been commodified, packaged as currency in the economy of attention, where approval is sought with a hunger that cannot be sated, and kindness is weaponized by those who see softness as a foothold. But the Stoics stand still in that storm, unmoved by applause, untouched by manipulation, for they do not give to be loved. They give because it is right. And when the moment demands silence, distance, or even the cold clarity of a closed door, they offer that too. Not from cruelty, but from deep, unwavering self-respect. We must learn this balance, not as a trick or technique, but as a living pulse within. We must listen to the quiet voice inside that says, enough, and honor it. We must guard the well of our energy, not with walls, but with discernment. And we must never forget that to set boundaries is not to turn away from love. It is to preserve the capacity to love without being consumed. In every act of misguided kindness, every moment we said yes when we meant no, every time we stayed when we should have walked away, every instance we try to prove our worth through service, we were not being virtuous, we were being afraid. Afraid of rejection, afraid of confrontation, afraid of not being enough. And so we gave, and gave, and gave. But the soul does not thrive in sacrifice alone. It thrives in truth. And truth sometimes sounds like silence. Sometimes it looks like distance. Sometimes it feels like loss. But it is never hollow. It is never false. It is never a performance. The Stoics urge us to step into that truth, not as armor, but as essence. They invite us to stop seeking to be everything for everyone, and instead become everything we were meant to be for ourselves first. Only then can we give without resentment. Only then can our kindness be pure and not poisoned by need. Only then do we begin to understand the real power of Stoic compassion, not soft and pliable, but strong, rooted, and unshakable. Imagine a world where each act of kindness is offered not from fear, but from fullness, where no gesture is tainted by desperation, where no sacrifice is made at the cost of one's own dignity. That is the Stoic vision. That is the ancient path winding through the ruins of ego and the forests of longing, towards something quieter, something steadier. And when you walk that path, you will lose things. You will lose certain friendships. You will lose the illusion of safety that comes from being endlessly agreeable. You will lose the need to be liked. But in the losing, you will find yourself. Not the self that bends and breaks under the weight of others' expectations, but the self that rises. The self that is whole and kind and silent when it needs to be. And in that silence, in that fierce serenity, you will hear a new voice, your own, clear, rooted, and true. And it will tell you exactly who you are. And it will never ask you to be anything less again. So lock your kindness with keys forged in self-awareness. Offer it with open hands, not trembling ones. Let your generosity rise like the sun, constant, radiant, but never apologetic for setting when the night arrives. Do not fear being misunderstood. Do not chase validation. Give where is welcome. Withdraw when it is wise. And above all, Do not let the world trick you into believing that kindness must come at the price of your peace. You are not here to be consumed. You are here to live, to breathe, to serve without slavery, to love without losing yourself. That is the Stoic way. That is the warrior's way. That is your way.